Great, thanks. Okay. All right, good evening, everybody. The time is 5:30 p.m. and I'm calling to order the Wednesday, May 12th, 2021 Public Safety Events and Quality of Life Committee meeting. I'm the chair, Mike Stefano. I'm joined by committee members Bill Scott and Don Bracelin. And we have our chief of police and our fire chief here as well. That is our call to order, which is item number 1. Item number 2 is WebEx information, which I feel like we could skip at this point, if that's okay.
Skip.
Yeah. All right. Item number 3 is comments, suggestions, petitions by residents and attendants regarding items that are not on the agenda. I don't see any hands and I don't hear anybody. Okay, hearing none, I'm going to move on to item number 4, which is our fire department report. Chief Pelna, are you with us?
I am.
Great, thanks.
Good evening, Steve Pelna, Fire Chief. Month of April, 95 calls. Getting back to our normal post activity now. As far as our training hours they're going way up, which is great. Everybody's getting out. Not only trainings within the training events within the department, but outside. We have folks traveling all over the region to obtain specialized training. So that's been great to see that go back up. We had our department drill last month. It was very well attended by not only the department, but some of the folks on this call. Also a lot of support from Chief Brogan and Chief Moorhead. Both of their teams were out as well, so that was great. And then we had a visit from Fox 29, and they did a story on volunteers and our struggles in that arena. So that was good. Get some publicity out there and help with our push on that side. A couple upcoming events. June 19th, we have a pipeline drill in Thornbury. So that's a very large event on a Saturday that we'll be participating in with West County Scotian Regional Police Department, Good Fellowship, and that's right on the line of Chester and Delaware County. So we'll also be working not only with the Chester County Department of Emergency Services, but also Delaware County and the Thornbury section of Delaware County. So pretty large event coming up. Multiple agencies will be working together on that. As everybody knows, the pipelines have been a sensitive topic, just in general, but most recently with the Colonial Pipeline issue. So that's coming up June 19th, and we'll be the one of the host agencies for that. We're over 90% vaccinated in the fire department, so that's really good. So makes me feel much more comfortable. A lot of meetings recently with our mutual aid companies, providing a lot of support to our mutual aid departments and companies surrounding us. Also, regular participants in the weekly calls for the PICO project and the Gay Street closure. So we're looking forward to the progression of that. And also, Mr. Gore, he's been working with him a lot on the East Nields complex. So looking at preparation for that, the industrial complex. So got to get our feedback in on that while it's well in the infancy stage. So we'll be able to better serve when that project continues. That's all I got. Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah, Bill or Don, anybody?
I don't know.
Yep. The only question I had, or this question was about that story that Fox 29 did. I feel like I did see a little blurb about it coming up, and I was like, oh, I want to watch that, and then I forgot. So it was just essentially looking at some different departments in the area and your struggles getting volunteers. Was that the idea?
Yeah, recruitment, retention, just overall volunteerism across the state going down, and obviously the consequences of that and the financial burden that we will all have to deal with both personally and at the municipality levels.
Yeah, I like to see that. I'm sure I'm gonna look that up. So I'm sure they have it on their website or something. I'll look that up. So
Yep.
Thanks. Okay. Anybody else have anything for the fire chief?
Yes, may I ask for the fire chief?
Yeah. Go ahead, Bob.
So Chief, last meeting, you said that we were all to get a message from
President
Bert
Eady. Yep.
about the volunteers and all. I finally tracked it down. It wasn't sent to everybody on council, but I read it, and he said everything's under control. And Bert Eady is a good neighbor and constituent of mine, and so I trust him that that's the case. But the letter wasn't all that informative. It said in 3 paragraphs that everything's under control. Are you satisfied that everything's good there at the?
I am, and I met with him again last night, and he assured me and showed me the written proof of it that everything is finalized and up and up.
Good. Does that mean they're going to have a fireman's banquet this year?
Well, yeah, we still plan to have a department banquet. We're looking in November for that. So yes.
Good. That's what I really care about, because it's great to see everybody winding down at that event. Thank you.
Absolutely, we appreciate it.
Anybody else have anything for the fire chief, fire department? Okay. Well, thank you very much, Chief Pellin. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Of course, thanks.
We're going to move on to item number 5, which is our police department report. Chief Moorhead.
Good evening, everybody. Jim Moorhead with the police department. And for the month of April, the police department responded to 3,195 calls for service, of which 2,250 of those were in the borough, 911 in East Bradford, and 34 area assist calls. The month of April provided us with a glimpse of what it looked like back in 2019. We were starting to get back to some numbers that were that we didn't see back in 2020. And Bill, if you could go to the next slide. That's just a breakdown of our areas. We can see that the Southeast continues to be high call volume. We ran nearly 700 calls for service in the Southeast for the month. We had numerous arrests in response to loud parties. The officers have been very active down in the Southeast. So they're winding down now, and we'll have a couple months of a break before they come back full time in August, as everything indicates right now. For this slide, the one thing of note is the right side there. You can see Part 2 crime, which is a lot of our nuisance, property, quality of lifestyle crimes. And 2020, obviously we were shut down last year, and you could take a look at where we're at this year, and you could see it's much more resemblant of 2019. So activity has picked up immensely in the borough, including traffic enforcement, which is not projected in this screen here. The only thing of note with our crime data is that we've seen a spike in, if you could go to the next slide, Bill, that'd be great. There you go. We're seeing a spike in DUIs and narcotic offenses, partly because our narcotics unit's back up to a full complement of staff, so they're active. And then DUIs, I honestly don't have an explanation for that one. We've seen a steady increase over the past 3 months with DUI related offenses, including a high spike in hit and run accidents. So we're keeping an eye on that, and the officers are remaining aggressive, as seen by the arrests and DUIs just for the month of April. Of note, during the month of April, officers participated throughout the department or department-wide in domestic violence protection from abuse order training that the county came in and assisted the police department on. They came out for 4 training dates. The officers participated in the protection from abuse program to make sure that they're up to speed on all the latest laws and changes. We're about midway now, after today, in transitioning to a new departmental weapon. That was a 2019 initiative that was pushed off in 2020 due to the pandemic. And we're now getting to that, and everybody's in the process of switching over to new weapons. Third, as you may have read recently, the Sustainability Committee and the Police Department were working separately, but towards the same goal to try to combat some of the vehicular noise and disruption uptown. The police department is actively engaging. We're in the process of adding some electronic signage to warn motorists coming into town that we're going to be aggressive and as far as zero tolerance with disruptive noise behavior with vehicles, motorcycles, car stereos, loud trucks, and so forth. We have a number of officers that are using all their available time to be up in the central business district to try to point out and locate these violators and find legal justification to stop them. And so we're actively engaged in that, which is actually going pretty well right now. And our pursuit of accreditation is going extremely well at this time. Everything is full speed ahead with that. And I believe we still have a target date of October, November for going for our first review with the state of Pennsylvania. I think that's it as far as crime numbers and what's going on in the police department. If anybody has any questions.
Mr. Braceland, anything?
No, I'm really glad to hear about the noise initiative. As you know, I've been interested in that for a good while, and you're going to make a lot of people pretty happy because that's the complaints I get are parking and noise. They're the two big ones. So that's great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
It's going to be an evolving project, Mr. Braceland, as you know.
Sure.
Yeah, it's going to take a lot of effort and tweaks but the point is that we're up there. We're actively pursuing disruptive noise, and once our staffing gets back to a reasonable level, we'll push more resources up that way as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would echo what Mr. Braceland said about that. It's such good news, and I'm glad that it's we're really being proactive about it and doing something about it. And I don't know, I don't get as many complaints myself, but anecdotally, just walking around, even my area town, people are just peeling out and just crazy loud noises on their cars. It's out of control. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Mr. Scott, anything? Okay. If you're talking, Bill, you're muted.
I'm usually better off that way. Thank you. Chief, I'm happy about enforcing the noise ordinances. The problem has always been the proof. Is that not still the case?
It still is the case, Mr. Scott. But what we've done is we've provided a guide to our officers that shows all the most common violations with motorcycles, trucks, and cars when it comes to motorcyclists not wearing eyewear or other types of violations that we can justifiably stop and cite for. So although noise is going to be a continued issue that we're working through, and we still have more discussions upcoming with the state on this, we are pursuing other violations to send the same message.
I got you. Is there, are there any prosecutions for vehicular noise?
There are, and the officers are issuing inspection orders for those vehicles to go seek an inspection and have a state inspection station find if the mufflers and so forth are legally provided by the dealerships that they buy the vehicles from and that they're not modified. We do not have the tools to do that in the field, but we can certainly order a vehicle to seek inspection.
But there are no violations pursued for violation of the ordinance.
Well, we have a noise violation, a noise ordinance in place, and we can certainly apply it to that, and we plan on doing so.
Okay, but I am right that that hasn't been done heretofore.
Not on this level, no.
Okay, thank you.
With the exception of loud car stereos, our officers do stop and cite for that all the time.
Really? And do they stick? The
Yes, under the noise ordinance, those violations stick.
do you have any explanation why those work out okay and a modified engine that just screams at you, it doesn't work? Why that isn't enforceable?
Well, we don't have the inspection authority to determine in the field whether a vehicle is in violation or not. That's the biggest reason. We can, however, go after loud stereos, and if we can prove that somebody altered their exhaust, then we can certainly cite in the field. But that's done through investigation.
No, I'm talking about the loudness, just violation of the noise ordinance, not regardless of how it's caused. We still don't have the ability to do that, do we?
Correct. Yeah. In short, that's correct.
Okay, and is anything that you're working on now, are you able to address that?
Well, we're in talk with partners who deal with this very issue. You know, Jenkintown, some other areas, for example, are seeing spikes in the same type of issue. They're all dealing with the same problem. So we're reaching out to our partners and trying to have conversation on it.
Is there any kind of gun that is that you can point at the noise and get a reading on it in terms of decibels? I don't want to sound like why don't we drink Lysol or something, but is there such a device?
There are tools for measuring exhaust sound. Yes. The department doesn't have any at the moment.
I have one in my phone. It doesn't measure much over 140 decibels, but I've been uptown a couple of times taking some readings, and just plain old regular traffic can be between 80 and 90 decibels. That really surprised me. But yeah, you get a little decibel meter on here, but it's not, of course, it wouldn't work for law enforcement, but just to give you an idea of how much noise there really is up there, especially on Gay Street.
Yeah.
Interesting.
To ask a different question, what happens to the old guns, the old firearms that the police department does not use anymore, that they upgrade?
They're part of a trade-in program. So roughly a new firearm costs about $450, and we trade in our old weapons at the current cost of $265 per weapon. So we're getting quite a credit back to the borough for trading them in.
And are they used in other police offices, or do they just go out in the public?
They're up for legal purchase. Yeah, to the vendor that buys the weapons.
Mm-hmm. And so you're saying it will cost us about $140 a pop to not to do that and just throw them in the incinerator. How many weapons are we talking about?
Close to 60.
Uh-huh.
And it's about $200 a gun when it's all said and done.
You mean the rebate you get?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else have anything for the police department? Okay. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it. We will move on to item number 6, which is our Good Fellowship report. Chief Brogan, are you on?
I'm on. Good evening. Yeah, we'll start going through this real quick. 508 calls total for the month there. 159 of which were in Westchester Borough. Nothing really outstanding other than what I spoke about last month. We're certainly returning to normal call volume. You can note that on the weekends, especially in Westchester. So we're right where we were back in 2019, just as the other disciplines were. So definitely making a comeback to the quote unquote normal call volume that we expect. So other than that, really no other out of the ordinary data for April. Outside of the calls, we did start the homebound COVID-19 vaccinations last month. At the end of April, we started them. We had teams out for a couple days at the end of April, vaccinated about 25 homebound residents, which was great. We'll have teams out again this week, so that's going really well too, thankfully. Other than that, really nothing else. Unless you have any questions for me.
Mr. Braceland or Mr. Scott, anything?
I have none. Thank you very much.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much. Anybody else have anything for the Fellowship Ambulance? All right. Well, thank you. I really love to hear that homebound vaccination helping out everybody, and that's just really an awesome program. So
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks. Okay, let's move on to item number 7, which is discussing an ordinance for stop signs at Minor Darlington and Minor New Streets. I know we've talked about this in the past. I don't know who's taken this. Is Lieutenant Daly or Chief or anybody?
Yeah. Jim Moorhead, Police
Okay.
Department again. So this is a study received. The traffic planning and design company came in and did a study. The police department disputes some of these facts, but it's not really impacting the police department yet. It's going to have a greater effect on the residents down there. On the specific corner or intersection of Darlington and Minor Streets, there are limited residents on the 4 corners there, but I do caution that adding stop signs along there are going to create just a whole other list of issues. But we're not going to argue with PennDOT if they want to add the stop sign, the 4-way stops there. That's not going to be an issue with the police department. It's their recommendation, and it's a state road going west on Minor Street. We just want to make sure that everybody's aware that increased stopping vehicles is going to add to sustainability issues, and is also going to add to traffic noise with all the stop and go and screeching that you were just talking about. So, with one solution comes another problem. That's the way it goes sometimes. But the police department's not opposed to the pursuit of the 4-way stop signs.
When it comes to this, so this is a PennDOT study, and you said this is a state road. So if they were going to put stop signs on, is there anything we can even do about it if we wanted to, or is this something where if PennDOT's going to come in and do it, we just have to say okay?
Yeah, I'd ask Mike Perrone on that one because he's been around that block a few times, no pun intended. And
The PennDOT's recommending the stop signs, but ultimately the borough has the final say if we want to install them or not.
Now, if say they recommended it, but we didn't want it, does that put us in any kind of ability issue? If something happens and, could we be liable?
Well, that's more of a legal question, so I don't know.
I think I remember, I forget the gentleman's name. Who's the gentleman that does all the traffic studies stuff for us? He comes in.
Yeah, Joe Platt and Randy Waltermeyer.
Randy, that guy. Yeah. So I remember him saying he drove it. It wasn't a big deal, like time wise. I always I seek out Minor Street when I have to go to the west side of town because there are no stop signs, and I feel like it's just easier. But I also see the issues with, people stopping when they're not supposed to, and this and that. So I'd be interested to see what Mr. Scott or Mr. Braceland thinks about this.
I read the study, which is very complete. I'm strange. I like reading traffic studies, but as much as stop signs are against my religion, a case could be made for stop signs here. But at the same time, I agree with you. Minor Street's a popular street because you can get through the borough a little bit faster. And when I was looking at it, of course, I'm not a traffic expert, but it almost seems like if we increase the sight line a little bit more by, maybe reducing some parking on four corners, and maybe a little bit of signage. But like I said, the study makes a reasonable case for it, but I would prefer they not be there. That's just my take on it.
Mr. Scott, what say you?
Darlington and Minor, I was involved in an accident there, substantial damage to my vehicle. But it was a case of I was on Minor, so it was the other driver running the stop sign. So I suppose that would have been prevented if there were stop signs on Minor as well.
If you would have stopped.
What?
If you would have stopped.
I get you. Yeah. One problem we have is people thinking there's stop signs at every intersection, and so they don't. They enter the intersection when they shouldn't be because they think the other car is going to stop. For that reason, might as well have stop signs all over the place. So I favor PennDOT and what they're doing. Thank you.
Yeah. Would anybody else like to speak to this?
Mr. Stefano, Bernie Flynn.
Yeah, go ahead, Bernie.
These two stop signs sit squarely in Ward 6. The Darlington Minor Street, people stop because they think they're supposed to stop. So rear ends happen at that corner. Plus the Bucket School's there, and the Presbyterian Church would love to have people slow down as they're coming by the school. And down on New and Minor, where I live, the accidents have dropped dramatically down there because we put up a very vibrant green sign that says the traffic coming towards you is not going to stop. But that doesn't prevent some of the accidents still. So you get a head start at Church Street and you're not stopping till you hit Wayne. So you can pick up quite a bit of speed going through down Minor Street, as you well know, as you try to cut through to get the other side. The residents that I've talked to are in favor of the stop signs. But, you know, and PennDOT did an excellent job showing why it should be done. So, so that's our 2 cents on people that live on Minor Street.
Yeah, I've plenty of times, especially at Darlington, have, you know, almost rear-ended a car that stopped because they thought they were supposed to stop. So I hear you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Any other comments on this? So what's the Mr. Perrone, in terms of an ordinance, what would be the ask to?
Yes, all you're doing is you're authorizing the solicitor to draft an ordinance for installing stop signs at both of these intersections.
Okay, so I know, Mr. Scott, it sounds like you're in favor of it. Mr. Braceland, are you opposed to it, or?
I'm going to oppose it.
Okay, and that means that I'm actually gonna be in favor of it because I'd like to let it go to full council for the vote. So that'll be 2-1 to recommend that the solicitor draft an ordinance.
Yeah, and just, you know, for clarity, to Don's point,
Yeah.
you're really not voting against it now. This is to create, draft the ordinance and have a public hearing and give the residents that live there the opportunity to actually be heard also.
Yeah. So that's, exactly. So, okay. Anybody else have any comments on this? Or if not, we're 2-1 in favor of drafting an ordinance. Okay, great. We're going to move on to item number 8, which is discuss Mercado's outdoor platform extension. I'm not sure if the chief's going to take this one as well, but I definitely read this one for sure. So go ahead, chief.
Yeah, the police department conducted a study for the 50 block of West Market Street and the request for Mercado to extend outdoor dining. The police department is in strong opposition of this due to the fact that there's Lieutenant Daly did a very in-depth study on this specific issue, and there's a significant site distance issue with coming out of Courthouse Alley and looking west as eastbound traffic travels down Market Street. So there's a site issue that's going to cause a hazard. And we've already had 2 significant incidents that have occurred in that block. And the only thing the police department would recommend that is if this were to be voted in favor of, that you consider changing Courthouse Alley to northbound traffic only instead of southbound where it pops out onto Market Street there. That would eliminate some of the sight distance issue, but that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah, looking at it, especially that picture that's in the report here. I mean, it's just obvious that this is a hazard. But I do see changing the Courthouse Alley to just go north would definitely be helpful. So, Mr. Braceland, Mr. Scott, what are your thoughts on this?
I think the last time this issue came up, I've been up there twice, just observing, and I got some pictures. And what surprised me was especially how close the cars are coming to the dining area. I mean, like, and I'm really not exaggerating much there. And the sight line, I agree with the chief on that. I wasn't aware that this study had been done back then, but yeah, and making Courthouse Alley northbound, I think we should just do that anyway. But anyway.
One of the other issues we have there is when you're just coming out of the 100 block West Market and preparing to cross over Church, there's actually a narrowing of Market Street there. And some vehicles,
right.
especially
That's
after
right.
hours, have had curb strikes on the 100 block corner, which it would be the northwest corner of Church and Market. And we've had a significant number of accidents up in there. So we would also, in the future, like to look at a study for the curb issues up there as well. But if anybody watched the 5 o'clock news tonight, there was a pretty substantial or significant accident in Northern Liberty's section of Philadelphia where a car plowed into outdoor dining platform. So we want Mercado to continue to succeed, but this is a tough ask for the police department.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about the way that the road narrows. Yeah.
Mr. Scott, what are your thoughts?
Yes, it would be helpful in understanding this if we had a plan, a map, a plot plan, sort of. Do we have any of that in this? I know it's not. This is a good report. I read the report, and but it would be. Do we have that, Mr. Prone?
Not on this study. We'd have to have.
No, this is not a request of the borough to do this. It's a request of the owner of the bar and a restaurant. So no, we haven't prepared anything.
Didn't Mr. Schuman submit a kind of a plot plan with his request?
I haven't seen anything. No.
Okay.
I did not, Mr. Scott.
What?
I have not. I'm sorry. This is Bill Schuman here.
There he is.
No.
Sorry. Well, do we have such a visual, Bill?
I do not have. I did not submit a plot plan for you in preparation of this, but I can submit it. I didn't think that this isn't part of the bigger plan, or it is part of a bigger plan. I wasn't sure what the pushback would be on this aspect of it.
Well, I talked to Bill about this previously. He's an old friend, as you can see. He's a pretty cool guy. Must have a motorcycle someplace. Looking at him now, but I would like to have this tabled because actually, Bill Schuman, I was thinking this was going to go on Church Street. I guess was badly remembering it, but I'd like to see a visual from the top down because I think we all have an interest in doing what we can for the restaurant business downtown, and Mercado's been very good. By the way, they've already been rammed once. There's already been a significant slam into their platform there. Fortunately, I don't believe anybody was hurt. But anyway, I'd like to see this tabled so that we can think about the northbound option as well. I don't know about that yet because it does flow through. Am I not correct? If you went northbound on that alley, you could come out on Church, isn't that so?
Correct.
Yeah, and is it northbound on that side? Or is this a one-way alley?
Yes, it is.
No. No,
Okay,
if
so
you made it one way, that would also maybe have some effect of the parking on Church Street. And in addition, there's a lot other property owners in that alley that I'm sure would like to know if that was going to happen.
yeah, well,
I wanted to chime in on that. It is a one-way alley. There's signs that say "Do not enter." It only goes west down. You're legally supposed to only make you can't go. It's a one-way into the alley. It's only a one-way making a left into the alley off of Market Street. Sorry, my name is Shant. I'm the general manager over here at Mercado.
Okay. So can we go back to? Do we have any confirmation on whether this is a one-way alley or not a one-way alley?
There's "Do not enter" signs on the alleyway. There's a one-way sign in front of the alleyway.
Well, some signage was put up. I don't know if it's current, during the demolition of the Mosteller building, there was signs put up, and it may have become one way during the demolition and reconstruction. Perhaps those signs are still up.
Okay. All right.
I move to table it because I don't want to reject this tonight. I really don't.
Gotcha. Let's keep discussing a tiny bit, and then we may just table it. So I know John O'Brien wants to say something. Can I call on him now?
Yeah, thank you. So really, the bid had brought this into the council. I know Building and Housing had been out there on this issue. There were really two issues that we were bringing to council's attention. The first being the platform, which is what you have before you. But the other item was Alfredo had been wrapping tables around the old Dinniman office, in light of the pandemic, desire for outdoor dining, etc. The Dinniman office is currently not being used. Recently was cited by Building and Housing for not being allowed to have those tables out there. Scott Zukin, the owner of that building, is okay with Alfredo using that area for tables. Mainly during the weekends is really what Mercado is seeking to do there as well. Scott is willing to write a lease, and I know Mercado would be willing to do the cafe permit and the fee associated with that in light of a 2021 year of recovery for some expanded outdoor dining. Is they have not had the opportunity to be on Gay Street to have that extra spot. So there's really I know it's not exactly addressed on the agenda, but there were really two things that we were kind of seeking to talk to council about. Obviously, Building and Housing, the ordinance is what it is. Their hands are tied. But we did also want to be part of the conversation on seeing if, at least in 2021, council would permit, as long as Mr. Zukin signs off on it, to be able to place tables around the old Andy Dinniman office.
And if I can chime, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I feel like that's just a completely separate issue. I'm okay discussing it. I'd rather flush out the platform first, so we don't get I don't want to talk about two different things right now. But I do think that's worth discussing, John.
Sure. And if you want me to wait till smart growth, I can bring it up there. Obviously, the spot is unused, and depending on, I know we have this conversation is a little moot point until we get some clarity on what direction the alleyway comes. From the business perspective, for us, we're going to be supportive. We want more outdoor dining, even post pandemic. The way it's kind of set up right now is kind of cut, so it's not a squared out platform that kind of sits exactly like a parking spot would, to try and address, safety concerns on there. To a degree, I guess this conversation is a little tough to have right now until we get clarity on the direction of that alleyway.
Yeah, I tend to agree that I think if the alley is one way going north out and then lets out into Church, I'd have a much easier time allowing this. Although there is the concern about the narrowing of the roadway in Market Street, but I heard somebody else who wanted to chime in. Somebody else who wanted to speak. I'm sorry.
No,
I was going to.
I think Mr. Scott said he made a motion to table.
Does that need to be seconded, Mr. Perone?
Would love to.
On that. Huh?
Yeah, if I could second it.
Can you? The motion's on the table. Mr. Braceland, did you want to second that or?
Okay.
All right. Now, I don't think we actually vote on that. I think once it's proposed and we second it, does that mean it's tabled or?
Sounds like you got 2 votes for it anyway to table it. So
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Michael, Stefano.
Yeah.
I'd like to explore the question about who's responsible for making a plan for this, a ground level map sort of thing. I guess that's Mr. Perone's a question directed to him.
Yeah, who should submit that to you, Mr. Perone?
In my long career, is if a property owner or an applicant wants something for borough council to consider, it should be their responsibility to provide whatever you need to make a decision.
Well, it doesn't have to be fancy. You just blow up one of the maps that we have. And so Mr. Schuin is on the line, I think. Can we ask him if he'll do that?
I
think we can accompany it with a cafe permit, right?
Yeah, Bill's pretty astute. I think he heard the concern, and I'd be surprised if he doesn't have the plan done tomorrow.
Yeah,
maybe we can. If I can ask, maybe we can, while we're submitting this plan, we can go ahead and add the plan.
But I thought this agenda item was tabled.
Yes, it is. So since in lieu of it being tabled, I guess just so for some guidance for you, Mr. Schuin, is that how you say it? I'm sorry if I don't say it wrong.
Yes.
Would be then just to submit an actual design and a plan so we have something to look at, and that would make us make us a lot more informed to make a decision. Because I don't know if I can speak for everybody else, but I feel like I'm listening to the police department's recommendation, and I have a tendency of taking their recommendation. So I'd feel much more comfortable looking at something physically. I agree with Mr. Scott. So does that sound
okay?
Make sense?
Yes, it does. I have a question.
Yeah.
Can I piggyback this with the cafe permit application I want to submit for in front of what we'll call the Dinman office, which, as you've heard, the tenant has permission from the landlord as well as insurance to use that cafe, not inside, just exterior, for this season.
Yeah, that would be. I mean, that would be another item, and I think that might be. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Perone, but that sounds like more of a smart growth agenda item, or will that come through public safety? You're muted, Mike. Mike, you're muted.
That's because this item was tabled 5 times.
Picky.
It should be smart growth. I mean, to answer Bill's question, submit it all in one package, Bill. It's no big deal. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
And Braceland, Mr. Stefano, Braceland and I represent the majority of the Smart Growth Committee, and I would be willing to yield it back to here. Both questions.
Yeah.
That can be done.
Well, don't forget, our public safety is also Smart Growth, so I'm on Smart Growth too. So. The same committee.
Oh, you're on Smart Growth?
Yeah. Same committee, just different names. So, all right.
Oh, yeah. Let's piggyback.
Okay. All right. So this is
Thank you.
tabled. So this is tabled, and we'll see a submission with that other platform out front of the Denman office as well.
Thank you very much.
You got it. Okay. All right. We're going to move on to item number 9, which is approve the hiring of part-time dispatchers to correct scheduling issues. This has come up now like the third time. I mean, new information, or have we ironed out all the facts?
We have, I believe, and back in April, we voted 3-0 to send it up to council, and we'd like to keep that vote so it goes back to council discussion or vote, and we've ironed out any discrepancies that we had back in April.
And
We've all met. Yeah.
And those discrepancies then are still kind of what we looked at last month in terms of this will be a cost savings for the borough.
It's going to correct scheduling issues and ultimately provide some cost savings.
Mr. Stefano,
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Scott.
do I understand the chief correctly that we've already voted to approve this 3-0 in this committee?
Yes, and then it went to full council, and then full council, I think, pushed it back down till they got some more information. They had to do a little bit more.
So it's referred back down to us.
Yes.
Is that right, Mike? Or is it still at council level?
It was pushed down, tabled. It's been on the like 3 different agendas and hasn't seen the light of day. So
May I say this to Mike Stefano?
Mhm.
It would seem to me that this is an item for public safety and finance.
Yeah.
And that we should confine our thoughts to whether or not it improves the police department's ability to protect the public, to have and I guess we approved it. We thought it was last time, so we ought to just approve it again. I'll vote yes for it, but
Yeah.
I think it should go to. Is it on the agenda for finance? Mike?
no, because it has no financial impact. There's no additional cost to the borough.
Fair enough. So that being said, Mr. Scott, I think I agree with you that we should be looking at it in terms of a safety and quality for the department, and it sounds like it would be a benefit. So I would tend to just consider vote yes. Yeah.
I vote yes, but Mr. Flynn is on the line. Can we ask him if he is in agreement with the fact that there's no.
What do you think, Mr. Flynn?
Mr. Stefano, Bernie Flynn, good evening. It already went to the finance department, the finance committee last month, and we hashed out through the Barbara Leonti, the chief, and Mr. Metric and Mr. Perone. They already worked it out. It's going to be close to neutral as we go through, with maybe some minimal savings. So it's good for the finance department. So it's a win.
That's all I needed to hear. Is that good for you, Mr. Braceland?
Council.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, sure.
Great. So we're 3-0. Does anybody else want to comment on this before I close this item? All right, that'll be a 3-0 approved to send this back to council to get this voted in. And then item number 10 is approving our April minutes, and they look good to me.
Good to me.
Good for me.
Yeah, they're very detailed. Very nice. Any other business?
May I just ask Mr. John O'Brien if he'll be here for Smart Growth? There's an issue about the bid that I wanted to bring up there.
Yes, I'll be here for finance, and I'm with you for the rest of the night, Bill.
Well, that's why you're our executive director. You're a glutton for punishment. Thank you for being there.
All right. Any other business? All right. A little bit late tonight. Sorry, everybody. We are 6:19. We are adjourned. Thank you.